Welcome to Storytimer at Large. Audrey Evers Pugh. Audrey Evers married William Pugh in December of 1951 when she was 30 and he was 29. He owned a successful printing business that had been in his family for generations. The couple took a honeymoon trip to the West Indies. The couple lived at 2752 Hill and Hollow Lane in Cincinnati. Audrey Pew was described as quiet and very spiritual. She was a devout Catholic and was a parishioner at St. Mary's. Easter Sunday, 1956, was on April 1st, also known as April Fool's Day. It almost seems like a bad omen or a sign. I don't necessarily believe in that, but a fiction writer could have a field day with that detail. On Wednesday morning of April 11th, 10 days after Easter, in 1956, Audrey Evers Pugh was home alone. William was at work. That morning, the gas meter reader, Robert Lyons, was moving through the neighborhood. Today, most gas and electric meters are located on the side of the house. In the Pugh neighborhood, the gas meters were located inside the basements, so the homeowner would have to let the gas meter reader into the basement door. Robert Lyons had worked for the Cincinnati Waterworks for years at that point. And what happened next is murky. That morning, Audrey Pew was stabbed to death in the foyer of her home. It seemed to some that she answered the door at some point that morning. She was still in her nightgown, with a robe over the top. The person at the door began stabbing and slashing Audrey with a short knife. She had defensive wounds on her right and left hands and her arms. She seems to have tried to turn and run. The killer then began stabbing her in the back. Why would someone want to kill Audrey? That's the first scenario. Another scenario is that she opened the basement door for the meter reader. He tried to assault her. She fought him off, and then she tried to run up the stairs and out the front door. He stabbed her in the back to prevent her from running out that front door. That scenario seems more likely given the details that were gathered in the investigation in the following days. The knife used was described as 3.5 inches long and about a 1/2 inch wide. It's been described as a paring knife, but it seems to me that it could also be a folding pocket knife. Almost every blue-collar working man carried a pocket knife in those days. The knife used in the murder was not from the Pugh home. None of their knives were missing. Robert Lyons was the usual meter reader in the neighborhood. Another neighbor had also reported seeing him in her own backyard. He was a gas meter reader after all, so that's not unusual, but he wasn't on the basement door side of the house. She didn't think he had any business whatsoever in the location that she saw him. It bothered her. What was he doing there? Robert V. Lyons was interviewed by the police. He denied the murder at first, but eventually signed a 28-page confession. His clothes, long underwear, and a blue shirt were found to have traces of blood. They had been laundered by the time police talked to him, and the blood type could not be determined. His trousers also had blood stains, including a large spot on the cuff. That spot is described as a clot. That was tested and found to be type A. Audrey Pew had type A blood. He was seen by a housekeeper from a nearby home in the neighborhood wearing a sweater with a jacket over it. Okay, seems normal. Later, she saw him wearing the sweater on top of the jacket. It seemed very odd. It stuck out to her. Later, when she learned of the murder, she went to the police. Could he have put his red sweater on over his jacket to cover the bloodstains? Who wears a jacket under a sweater? Lyons was tried for murder. However, he was not convicted. He had a criminal defense attorney who managed to discredit witnesses and sow seeds of doubt amongst the jury. Lots of people have type A blood, argued Lyons' attorney. The trousers had not remained in the lab. That is, the pants were sent to the lab and examined initially. The police collected them, but later returned them to the lab to test the blood type of the stain at the cuff. Chain of custody is important. Lyons' defense lawyer was able to argue that the blood could have come from a police officer with a nosebleed, for instance. Lyons said his confession was coerced, and he recanted. The housekeeper who saw him change his clothing around was an African American and a woman. The jury was easily swayed due to racism and sexism. The FBI had even produced a report that stated that Lyons' meter reader logbook had entries that were erased and altered for the morning of the murder. These changes made it look like Lyons had not been at the Pugh home at the time of the murder. But even that did not sway the jury toward a guilty verdict. Lyons ended up walking. In 1977, Robert Vernon Lyons was living in an apartment in Cincinnati. He had been walking around town that morning with a paper bag. He stopped into his local drugstore. He went there several times a day, staff said. I imagine that they must have had a lunch counter and served inexpensive meals. He told the staff there that the paper bag contained $7,000. He did not say where the cash had come from. Staff there told him not to tell people things like that. They told him to go straight home and put that bag away somewhere safe. And Lyons did go home. However, he didn't make it into his apartment door, though. He was found by a neighbor lying in the hallway, bleeding from the head. The bag of money was still there. His wallet and a coin purse were also there. He had more than $9,000 in cash on him when he had a massive heart attack and died on his own doorstep. He hit his head as he fell. I wasn't able to find an explanation of why he had so much cash with him. Perhaps he had withdrawn his life savings. Sometimes older people begin to distrust banks. I don't know if you remember the Marjorie Taylor Jackson case from 1977 in Indianapolis, but that was what happened to her. William W. Pugh, Audrey Evers Pugh's husband, eventually remarried. He and his wife Elizabeth had 3 children. William lived a long life and passed away in 2016. Audrey Evers Pugh, her murder is technically unsolved. If you have more information, please submit a tip using the link to the Ohio Attorney General's Unsolved Cold Case website. I'll post the link in the comments section. What do you think? Do you think that Mr. Lyons was guilty? Or was he just in the wrong place at the wrong time? I tend to believe that housekeeper who saw him with the clothing changed around. And then the blood on the cuffs. And the FBI report about the logbook. There's a lot of evidence there that I think the jury shouldn't have been so quick to dismiss. But that's just me. Thanks for listening to Storytimer at Large. Thanks for hitting that thumbs up for justice button if you're like me and you like to see justice done in these cases. Thanks for sharing the videos. Anytime you share the videos, this one is probably a long shot to actually solve. But some of these are more recent, and some of their murderers are still alive. So any of those that you share, the more chance we have of getting that video in front of the right person. Somebody who might have a tip, somebody who might have information, somebody who might be compelled to speak up. So thanks very much, and I hope you have a good night.